This is one of our favorite people, a huge supporter of Silicon Harlem, and her and I are both commissioners on the Commission of Public Information and Communications for New York City, and she's been basically a pioneer in the tech industry, and behind the scenes, much like Scott, they're sort of understated but very powerful. And one of the visionaries of New York Tech Meetup, in fact. So I'm going to have her introduce Scott, and Scott's going to talk about next generation community and just sort of the whole idea. If you don't know who Scott is, and Don will explain a little more, but if you've ever went on to a site called meetup.com, if you've ever been a part of a group on meetup.com, that man discovered meetup.com. You can go to a lot of things and go, I wonder who invented this. This is the man, along with Don and others, who invented meetup.com. So we're very, very honored to have him bring some remarks, talk a little bit about what he's up to these days, and answer a few questions. We only got a short period of time with him, but it's a powerful part of our day. Don?
Thanks so much, Clayton. And I'll just be really short and sweet because I applaud what Clayton and Bruce and all of you have done here. I think Silicon Harlem is a great thing. I view you very much as part of the tech community now. I think it's awesome. Those of you, how many of you have been to a meetup ever? Oh, so all of you, yeah. So Scott's the man. He built Meetup with his team. He's awesome. He started New York Tech Meetup, which is the largest meetup in the world, actually, at 47,000 people. And I was lucky enough to be his co-founder in that almost 11 years ago today. There's no man who cares more genuinely about community and what it means, in my mind, than Scott Heiferman.
Hey, I don't really need this, do I? Do I need this? Yeah. Hey everybody, thanks for. It's being streamed, so I should use this then. Let me tell you the Dawn story. So. Well, actually, let me back up and give you the quick version of Meetup. So just flashing forward for a second. I mean, do you have Meetup on your Meetup app on your phones? All of you, most of you. Okay, so it's kind of funny to hear him say like, "What I'm up to these days." Well, let me tell you what I'm up to these days. I'm up to Meetup these days. So we just crossed our 23 million members, and but we're our passion, our goal, our vision, our dream is that people really find the others and create community and create new connections because we want a world filled with real local community and there's a lot more people than 23 million people in the world, so that's what we do. We're at Broadway in Houston, not far from here, just for 13 years. Making it easier and better and easier and better and easier and better. And for any of you, sort of doing this entrepreneurial thing, I hate to break it to you, but it's really just a hustle on an everyday taking that product or taking that dream or taking that vision that you've got, and it's just a work it everyday thing, step by step by step. And so let me bring you back to the beginning for a second of Meetup, and then I'll bring you to the beginning of the New York Tech Meetup. I landed in New York City from Iowa 20 years ago, and I was living. I lived in 10 different neighborhoods in 10 cities. I didn't live in Harlem, and I know that this is a neighborhood with a hell of a lot more community, a hell of a lot more real feel of community than other neighborhoods. And my experience in New York was that it wasn't the nasty, ugly, unfriendly city that the whole world might think of it, but actually it was okay. It was pretty friendly. But something happened. I was living right near where Meetup is based now, around Broadway in Houston, and 9/11 happened, 2001, and right before the both towers went down, I zoomed up to my roof, and there were a bunch of my neighbors up there. And long story short, I ended up talking to more of my neighbors in my apartment building on that morning and that day and that week than I ever had in my years so far in New York City. And I was not a guy who was ever thinking about the importance of local community, the importance of this stuff. But it shocked me. It woke me up. It got me going on this idea that, hey, knowing your neighbors, having local community, not just treating people in the elevator, and not looking at each other, not saying hello. That's not the way to do it. That's not the way to live. And so how do we? So what do we do here? And so the idea for Meetup was born. By the way, any of you have the experience on even just on 9/11 that did you talk to any more neighbors that week? Oh, yeah. Yeah? So basically, the idea for Meetup was born, which is just how do you use the internet to get people off the internet? How do you get use the internet to get people off the internet in your in a neighborhood, in a town, in a city, and actually getting them to talk to each other? And that's a sort of a simple idea, and so the kind of the Meetup startup story is basically I found four people to work with. We all, this is important, we all were completely different in terms of sometimes you want to hook up with people who are just like you, who know the same things you know, who have the same skills you have. And I knew that I needed people who had different skills than me, who knew different things. And so we locked ourselves in a little 200 square foot room for about 3 or 4 months, and we came out with Meetup 1.0. And the most important thing about how we were thinking about it was that we were just thinking about how will this help people? How will this help people? And that's not to say we wanted to build a real business. We wanted to make money. Nothing wrong with that. We wanted that. But it was really first and foremost an idea of asking a question of what do we want people to do with this? How will it make them feel? How will it give them power? How will it make them able to do something they couldn't do before? And that's like anything. The people who are proud to make this microphone. They're basically saying how do we design the best microphone so it does its job well and it empowers people in some kind of way. But even you think about what's a company you respect, a product or a company you respect. Apple. Okay, so they're at a real fundamental level. They say we are trying to enrich people's lives. We are trying to make products that people love. So anyway, we launched Meetup, and it was a set of different people with different skills, which is so. I can't emphasize enough. Teams win. There's no such thing as there's this whole idea of the cowboy entrepreneur. No one does anything by themselves. I haven't done shit by myself. It's and then I could get a nice introduction from Clayton or Don, but it's not me. It's you need everything needs a good leader, and maybe you want to be the leader of whatever you're doing, but leaders are not leaders are leading people, leading others, and really the most important thing that's been critical for our little bit of success so far is all come from the idea that I've been lucky enough to have some to have people around me, a team around you, of just one person who cares about that thing as much as you do, who cares about that thing as much as you do, whatever you're trying to build, whatever you're trying to do, and that's hard. That's that might be too high a bar, but that's where the magic happens. That's any band, that's any. You don't make a, it's everything. So anyway, we launched Meetup. We're thinking you got to build this thing. Maybe you're thinking about something you're working on. All I need to do is build it, make it, launch it, and boom, it'll just the world will it'll just happen. But actually, so here I am, living proof of 13 years later. It's working it every day. And so we're a team of 140 people. mostly engineers and designers and community and a whole host of people with all kinds of different skills, all kind of different people making this thing happen. And so let me fast forward to like 2 years into Meetup. You got to eat your own dog food, you got to use your own product, you got to scratch your own itch, you got to feed your own need of whatever you're. And I had, I'd use my own product for certain things, but then I realized that hey. There's a lot of people talk about the New York tech community, but I don't see it acting like a community. People use that word community. They say community this, community that. But what does a community do? What does a community what does a community do? It meets up. I mean, this is like the whole thing about Meetup is that people will and it's not just well, yeah. I'll just leave it at that. So I decided, so I used my own product. I used Meetup, and started the New York Tech Meetup. And unlike Clayton and Bruce, who started a Meetup, and 500 people show up, guess how many people showed up to my first Meetup? 5, 2. You're a little high. It's 1, and that was Dawn Barber. That was this woman here. And I said, all right, Don, I guess we're partners here, so let's do this. And I mean, it was more than that. I had met her before, and she was this incredibly impressive person. And I'm like, oh my God, Dawn Barber showed up, so I'm gonna see if I can, yank her into this craziness. And I said, let's build this New York Tech Meetup together, which just basically meant let's just throw a good meetup every month and see what happens. And then here we are. I mean, I dropped out of it like 8 years ago, but it's 40,000 members as a meetup with a big. How many of you have been to the New York Tech Meetup? But so let me just say that I don't want to diss the New York Tech Meetup. I love the New York Tech Meetup, but I'll tell you what I am really proud of with regard to having worked for 20 years in this New York tech community, and that is this is the truth. I am in love with the fact that not that there's like this New York Tech Meetup with 40,000 members or whatever. 47,000. She got to correct me. I just love the fact that there are 2,000 tech meetups in New York City. 2,000 tech meetup groups in New York City. 2,000 tech, and you're like anything you can imagine. There is the short guys who want to play basketball who work in the tech industry meetup. There is everything under the sun, and so why do I care about that? What's important about that? It's that and the uptown tech meetup and everything all the tech meetups in this neighborhood and everywhere around the city. And why do I care about that? I care about that because true community is not when people are just one in a crowd of 47,000 people, or they're just audience members or consumers or people who are consuming media. It's no. Are they turning to each other? Do they actually get to talk to each other? Do they actually get to help each other? Do they actually get to help each other? Do they actually get to help each other? And that's not like seeing someone with a fancy title on a stage or being quiet in an audience. Although it's nice to have something where you get to hear someone with a fancy title on a speech and being quiet in an audience. But that's not where it's at. Where it's at, and this is the soul of Meetup, is how can people, as easy as possible, create community where that really empowers people. And that's by the way the short story of the whole kind of 21st century hopeful future kind of vision at large, at least the internet itself. So if you think about what the hell is the internet is if the 20th century is people turning away from each other and looking at big media, shopping at big box stores, being at the mercy of big finance and big pharma and big industry and kind of being told, well, don't turn to each other, don't talk to each other, just be a good consumer and listen to what we tell you to listen to. No. The internet is people funding each other on Kickstarter, renting the extra rooms to each other on Airbnb, and offering each other, being able to sell each other rides on Uber, and entertaining each other on Twitter and Facebook, and meeting up with each other through Meetup. It's how people are turned away from each other to turn to each other. That's the power of the, and we're in the early prehistoric era of hopefully a time and a place when people come together more, are more powerful together, and that's what I believe in. So that's where we are. So what can I do for you? Yeah. How much time do we have? A few minutes or what? I'll just be here till you guys get bored and walk out. So hit me. Yes. Meetup is 13 years old now. So 9/11, we started shortly after 9/11. Yeah. Sure. So she's talking about there's 23 million people who use Meetup, members of Meetup, and not to be an annoying, picky jerk of a person, but we would never use the word audience because we don't think in terms of audience. We think in terms of people who want to meet up with each other and empower each other, help each other, support each other, start businesses together, start bands together, have babies together, whatever. That's not an audience. But I get the spirit of your point. What do we do? Yeah. So, we got to figure out what we've done wrong and answer the question why do we only have 23 million members and not 230 million members? And the answer is we haven't made it good enough. We haven't made it easy enough. We haven't made it we haven't woken people up to the idea that whatever's important in their life, like what's important in your life? Okay. What? Yeah. So I met this woman today, 2 hours ago, who we invite 3 Meetup organizers to come and tell their story to the company every couple months. And this one woman, she gave me this. Her name is Mina Akpi. This African American woman. She got diagnosed with cancer, lymphoma, about 4 months ago, and she was stunned. And she couldn't find a support group she needed. She started Meetup for millennials with cancer, and luckily she got 20 people joined her Meetup. 20 people joined her Meetup because we do an okay job at Meetup of when you start a Meetup you get alerted. And by the way, I apologize for the too many emails we send you. But the point is hey, listen, if there's 1.1 million New Yorkers on Meetup, which is true, there's 1 out of 7 New Yorkers use Meetup. 1.1 million New Yorkers on Meetup. If there's 1.1 million New Yorkers in Meetup and a woman starts a millennials with cancer Meetup and only gets 20 members, there's probably more than 20 millennials in New York that have cancer. What have we done wrong that doesn't make it so that we fulfill what we're supposed to be doing, which is helping people find the Meetup that they want to find and helping people, So that's what we're focused on. How do we do what we're supposed to do, which is help people create new community, create new connections, and help people find the Meetup they would want to find. Yeah.
Too often you just said maybe you view yourself as a silo. To get more people outside the silo, how do you have partnerships with other companies?
Yeah.
Do you see exchanging information that helps maybe solve that problem?
Yeah. Again, I look at it through the lens of we haven't done it right, but I will, or if we had done it right, we'd be at hundreds of millions of members, not 23. But I will say how we have gotten to where we are is we've been relentlessly focused on. So we don't have partnerships, we don't do sort of advertising and marketing. We've gotten to 23 million members by relentlessly focusing on just making it easier and easier and easier and easier and easier. Making something easy is really, really hard. And that's what I think some people make a mistake around. That said, we need to, be open-minded to, whatever's going to drive Meetup in the future. But the most beautiful thing that happens, what we find, is that when someone starts a Meetup, or someone joins a Meetup that they love, they might post it to Facebook, or they might tell a few friends, or they might want, their Meetup that they just started. How many of you have ever told a friend about a Meetup that you were excited about going to? So that's what's gotten us to 23 million members. But we and we need to make that easier. Actually, I'll give you a little. We don't generally talk about what we're building, but we got some really nice ways coming out that when you sign up for a Meetup, it's going to make it really easy for you to invite someone to come with you, and just how can you just message that to them and have it be easy for them to come along with you. Yeah, this one.
How do you support the Meetup organizers to keep their information fresh and to engage
Their members. Yeah.
How do you do that?
Well, so there are 30 people who work at Meetup. There are 30 people who make up what we call the community team, and they spend all day helping out Meetup organizers all around the world with all kinds of problems that they're having, and even sort of proactively kind of thinking about setting up the system where if we see that your Meetup has gotten a bunch of new members, but you haven't scheduled a Meetup or something, it'll sort of prompt you to say, hey, you got all these new members. They're probably waiting for you they're waiting to meet up. So so it's both this very sort of high touch interaction, and then how do we automate certain things. But we're always that community team's a really important team. So anyone who has a real love for community building, and these people they act as coaches to these 250,000 Meetup organizers around the world. You should apply to help with that.
Okay, we're gonna take
Yeah.
one last question.
Ah.
Right here.
Oh, we got 10 questions. All right. Don't have to start screaming at me.
Yes.
No,
Oh,
wait
that's
him,
Pam.
because that's how you get attention, man. You make yourself known. So, yeah, my question is, how many Meetup mashups do you actually facilitate? Skiers and snowboarders, people who sew with people who rip stuff.
So I love that. I love that question. I've never been asked that. We don't do anything to support that or push that, or we don't actually organize anything. We just make the apps. But I can tell you stories, and we don't have time for many of them. But I'll give you 2 quick examples, not stories, but we've got the blind people's Meetup with the No, that's actually that's an interesting one too. I'll tell you that one. But it's no, there was bikers who hooked up with a bike Meetup hooked up with a blind people's Meetup. This is in New York City, where they basically said, hey, we love riding bikes around Central Park, and if we can get our hands on some tandem bikes, then the blind people could just ride on the bikes with us, and it all kind of hooked up and happened, and because the people were organized, it was able to happen quick. There was a pilots Meetup that hooked up with some sick, I don't know, dogs that needed. Oh, I'm gonna butcher this. I forgot. There's crazy mashups of the Meetups helping themselves, and that's a powerful thing. Again, what are we going for here? What do we want here? We want a world where there's a world filled with real local community. In other words, where people are actually in an organization, so that they're mobilizable, so that they are tappable, so that if you said that you needed to hook up with a community of other people, it's not just you're randomly going into the ocean and trying to find people, because they're already organized, and that's important. And by the way, I will say real quick that the history of social movements, people got something wrong. They think that the history of people being more powerful and social movements is about well, they think it's like the great leader assembles all the people that MLK says, I'm just gonna, make change. Or they think that like people are gonna organize into these groups around something. When women couldn't vote, it wasn't just that they just kind of spontaneously organized into women's suffrage, women's rights groups around the country. There was already a culture of women having women's social groups called like book clubs and church groups and all these other kind of women's social groups. And it was only in those existing, not related to power or rights or anything, did they start to say to themselves, hey, why can't we vote? And it was because that they were organized in all these pockets that then the suffrage movement emerged. People don't know how important it was that the black churches were already doing their thing, so that when the civil rights movement happened, they were already kind of organized all over the place, and they could like turn on that power because they were already organized in the black churches. What I want to see happen is that like if there's a world, if like New York City right now has 12,000 meetup groups with 1 million members, and they didn't exist 13 years ago. I don't know what that's going to be used for, but we've already seen examples of it. Like when in the tech community there was some legislation that was really ugly, we pressed the button on the New York Tech meetup and 2,000 people showed up outside Senator Schumer's office, and that law changed. And he says it was because 2,000 people showed up in front of his office. Now that's an example of like what happens when, and again, the point is, we didn't like start a tech activism meetup. We started a tech meetup. And because we were already organized, you could mobilize. Yes, sir. And then her. So I'll be quick, and you guys be quick.
You made a comment about it's way more than just creating or producing a product. A lot of people think that's the end of the story, but it's about how you market and how you deliver. Was there a tipping point in Meetup, especially with social platforms, that's about having people on there in order for them to be useful? Was there a tipping point with numbers, and how did you know that was the right point, the tipping point, or did you do something to activate?
Yeah, well, actually, so I want to make sure I want to make sure I'm super clear. Like, actually, it really is just about the product. We never really did much marketing. It was about saying, how do we make it easier and easier and easier and easier? And I wish I could say there was like some magical tipping point. I will say though that most of what we thought people were going to use Meetup for, they didn't use it for, right. and what they did use it for were things we didn't imagine. So I thought people were going to be meeting up about this, that, and the other, and they didn't. And instead, we started this thing. Instead, what people used it for was like there was this guy named Howard Dean who was like running for president in 2004. And boom, all these people were using Meetup to organize around. This guy was like the Bernie Sanders of a long time ago, and it was. But the point is, I wasn't thinking we were building a political mobilizing tool. And lo and behold, what's the moral of the story? The moral story is you might be working on something or thinking about something that you think it's going to be used like this, when really it's about people will use it like that. And that's why you got to be smart enough to kind of. But you got to realize you're not that smart. You don't know what you think the founders of Twitter had any friggin' clue as to what Twitter was going to be? No, but they knew that they were building something that would be fundamentally empowering. I got the chance to ask Steve Jobs his last public question ever I was at a tech conference some bit before he died, and this is on the web. This video is up there, and I said. And it was funny, last question. I was like in the audience, and I said to him, what, you said you want to change the world. What really changes the world? And he said, again, this video is, you can see this on YouTube. He said that, about how Apple products, they get used in ways that they'd ever imagined. So he cited that there's all this emergence now of college courses that are being put up on iTunes, and people, again, this is some years ago, but like this, the mere idea that you could, watch a college course on a computer, that from far away, that it would be recorded, that there would be a library like that you can tap into. I mean, he was talking about what YouTube has become and what people do use these devices for. So again, it's like he says, we're making tools here. We're making tools. Like person who makes the hammer, they don't know what beautiful house or beautiful church is going to be made with that hammer, but they make a damn good hammer. That's what. So maybe that's relevant to something you're working on. You think that you're building like people are going to use it exactly like this, and they're going to do exactly this with it. No, you want to empower people, step back, and like give them the power, but it's up to them. That's what you are powerful because you make other people powerful.
Great. So my question is, in all the years you've done this, and with all the feedback you've received from, your most successful, or just any organizers, why do meetups fail? And what is your team learning through analytics, or just anecdotal feedback about why they fail and how you can, mitigate that?
That's a really good like kind of inside baseball, inside the meetup, HQ question. So we know, and I got a simple answer. The simple answer is meetups fail when they don't get the members. That woman who started the Millennial Cancer Meetup, I mean, she got just enough members. She got 20, but I'll tell you, like it, if she would have started that, she started that meetup in Boston or started that meetup in some other area, she wouldn't have gotten the members and it would fail. And so that's not the organizer's fault. It's our fault because so that might be maybe not so much a helpful question if you're basically asking what should an organizer do to make their meetup successful.
Paradox is there's so much stuff vying for our attention these days, and yet so many ways to microscopically hone in on like a crazy, ridiculous, specific interest, right?
Yeah.
And so that's.
Yeah, I think that I think if whatever you're working on, whatever you're doing, if you really are sort of true to the idea that it's going to be really wonderful for some people, then you don't have to like worry yourself too much about like how loud do I have to scream about it. I mean, granted, many wonderful things fail. Many wonderful things don't get the attention they deserve. But I don't know. I will say it's like but also many things started aren't wonderful. So it's kind of a poor answer, but I hope you take away something from it. You get my point. It's like whatever you're doing, like you don't just make it as good as possible. And in the case of are any of you meetup organizers? Yeah. So I mean, what I have found is that meetup organizers that are really actually I'll bring it just really simple. If they're in their heart of hearts doing the job of basically saying, I really want to see people connect. I really want to see people connect and doing that thing where even if it's just 3 people getting together, they're making sure people feel comfortable talking to each other. Because people are scared, people are awkward, it's a scary, weird thing. They go talk to strangers. And so that the best organizers kind of make people feel welcome.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.